In this video, we'll be taking a look at Prettier. Prettier is a formatter. As opposed to other linters, which will throw an error whenever the style doesn't match the convention, Prettier will automatically format your code. If we take a look at Prettier versus linters, you can see that we have two kinds of rules. We have formatting rules, and these rules would be things like single quotes, so using single quotes throughout your code, or semicolons. So in JavaScript, semicolons are optional. They will automatically be added at the end, and so you can choose to not put them in your code at all. And then we have code quality rules, and these rules are specific to your code. So for example, no unused variables. So if you were passing a, this is especially common in React, if you were passing in props that weren't getting used, well then a linter would end up throwing an error. And so now let's actually get into installing Prettier. To install Prettier, it's pretty easy. What you'll want to do is you'll want to install it globally to begin with. So we're going to use npm. And as you can see, I already had it installed. And now what we'll want to do is we'll want to create a file in our Prettier directory, and we'll call it index.js, and we'll actually make a source directory for it. And in our index.js, we'll have a console.log, which says hello world. And now what we can do is we can run Prettier commands. And so if we go back to the documentation right here, you can see that we can run Prettier, specify the style we want, which in this case we want to replace all double quotations with single quotes. And then we want to specify the path. So here it's using a wildcard, and so it's selecting all the .js files. And normally, Prettier would just output the new files, but if we use the write flag right here, then it will actually change the files. We want Prettier, and then we want to do single quote write. And then we're going to specify our path. You want to make sure that you use double quotes around the path, or else it won't work correctly. And so we're going to select source and then all the .js files. And if we take a look, you can see that our double quotations got replaced with single quotes. Now if we go back to the documentation, it's possible to specify a configuration file in Prettier. The configuration file will be called .prettier.rc. Create that. Going back to the documentation, you have multiple formats for the file. The one we're using is JSON, just because that's the one I prefer. And we'll remove this stuff because we don't care too much about it right now. So if I were to run the Prettier command now, it would look for all the JS files and replace our double quotes with single quotes, but it will also remove any semicolons because we have semicolons set to false. And so once I run it, it should end up removing the semicolon. I take this off and just write it like so, you can see it removed the semicolon. Now we'll take a look at how to run Prettier from our package.json. So if we do yarn add Prettier, and then we open up our package.json, what we can do is we can add our scripts. We'll call it, oops, format. In package.json, you want to make sure you escape your double quotes like so. And so we want all the files within our source directory that end with .js. I'm going to go ahead and add another line so that we can check, make sure it worked. Run yarn format and take a look. You can see that it applied our styles. And now what we want to take a look at is pre-commit hooks. And if you're unfamiliar with Git hooks, essentially Git has a way to fire off custom scripts when certain important actions occur. And you have two types of hooks. So you have client-side hooks and server-side hooks. We'll be implementing client-side hooks today. Client-side hooks are triggered whenever you're doing things on the client side, such as committing or merging code. And server-side hooks would happen, on a server. So let's say you were pushing your code to Bitbucket or GitHub. Well, then it might apply styles then. And so what we'll need is we'll need Husky and lint-staged. Now what we'll want to do is take a look at our Git hooks. Oh, it's because I didn't initialize a Git repository. And so we'll have to make sure that we initialize that. And because I initialized Git after Husky was installed, we're actually going to have to remove it and then reinstall it. Now if we look at hooks, you can see that there's much more. And so according to the documentation, all we need to do is add these two parts to our package.json. And so I'm going to change this to source. We only have JavaScript files in our example. And so essentially what this is saying is it's setting up a pre-commit event. And so whenever we use Git, right before it's going to commit our code, it's going to run lint-staged. And lint-staged is saying use this directory and run Prettier with the flag of write, and then right after add our code. And so once this is staging the files that we've just changed, and so they'll get picked up by the commit. So if we do console.log, like so, if I were to commit this code, well then it should replace the single quotes and semicolon. And so it's going to pick up node modules, so it would be better if we added a git ignore. Actually, wait, that shouldn't matter because we were purposely selecting source. Oh well. We do git add, git status, git commit, initial commit. And now if we look at our index.js, you can see that it applied our styles. And so you can see Prettier would be useful for a big project when you're working with lots of other people who have different ways of coding. It helps set up a convention where the code is consistent. Thank you for watching the video, and if you have any questions, let me know.